Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday edition of the Whitfield Report. Yes, you heard that right. This is the Sunday edition of the podcast, and I am your host, Sam Whitfield, as always, recording here in South Florida. And I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight, or in the past, present, future hour, whenever you're listening to this. For those of you who are wondering why I'm doing a Sunday podcast as opposed to a Saturday podcast, I did do a live stream last night on the YouTube channel. However, it wound up not being very political. It wound up more or less me just interacting with the chat. And that is part of the fun of YouTube, just kind of having a nonsensical show every once in a while. Politics can kind of get grating and kind of get boring, and it's fun interacting with the chat and kind of goofing off every once in a while on a live stream, but that's not really conducive to an audio podcast. So I figured I would just do one for you guys here on Sunday. Sunday evening is when I'm recording this. So some of you guys, if you're night owls, will hear this tonight. A lot of you will hear this on Monday morning or, afternoon or evening, depending on when you're able to listen to podcasts in general. So I don't have a jam-packed show tonight. This is actually going to be a pretty short podcast. Once again, I realize I've been doing shorter audio podcasts, and I haven't really been doing too many audio and video podcasts simultaneously. Part of that is because YouTube is going through major workarounds lately, and no one really seems to be sure what's going on with YouTube these days, but hopefully things will get straightened out soon. In the meantime, I do enjoy putting out audio exclusive episodes for you guys. And I hope you enjoy them as well, and judging from the download numbers that I've been getting, it seems like it. So, anyway, the topic of today's episode, I guess, is actually me kind of answering a question that I've received a lot lately in tweets, and in some of you guys who have written to my website too. A lot of people have been asking, Sam, why haven't you covered the Democrat primary more? Why haven't you been talking about that more? It seems like you would be interested. And there's a very good reason why I've been talking about that. I'll get to that in a sec. First off, I want to plug a friend's podcast, and I plugged him here before, and he hasn't offered me any money or any kickbacks or anything like that to promote his podcast. But if you're interested in hearing more about the Democrat primary, from a conservative or a libertarian perspective, as always, I have to plug Eaton's podcast. He hosts Ion 2020, which is another great podcast out there. So I highly recommend that you check his podcast out if you are really interested in the specific minute details of the Democrat primaries so far. But truth be told, ladies and gentlemen, it's not that I'm not interested in the primaries. I have been watching some of the Democrat primary stuff, but honestly, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I don't really feel like there's anything that I can contribute to the commentary field at this point. which may seem shocking to some of you guys because I'm a podcaster and a political commentator. But here's the way I see it. I see the Democrat primaries right now, and this is going to be an odd comparison to some of you guys, but bear with me as I explain this. Right now, I see the Democrat primaries in the same way I see the iOS beta program for the iPhones and the iPads, right? Every year or so, Apple, for like the past 2 or 3 years, has released a public beta version of the upcoming iOS software. And there are people who, if you choose to, you can enroll your device and download the latest beta software of whatever operating system Apple is going to release, in the coming year. Now, the plus side of that is you kind of know what you're going to be getting, in the future. You know of some features that you might be getting. But the problem is, in the early beta testing stages, nothing really turns out as expected to plan. And sometimes your phone crashes, and, sometimes there are other bugs. Apps don't work, because it's a beta and because you're working out the kinks. So, what does that have to do with politics? How is that comparison, valid? Well, at this stage in the Democrat primaries, we know that eventually we're going to have a nominee who is going to face off against President Donald Trump, right? We know that Trump is running for re-election. That's all said and done. At this point in the Democrat primary race, I feel that there are too many candidates, or really too many bugs, for me to really, if you will, there are too many bugs or too many candidates for me to really make an accurate statement as to, I think, would be facing off against Trump, or who I think is going to be the Democrat nominee. And honestly, I think a lot of the candidates are the same, honestly, with the exception of a few individuals, and I'll get to that here in a sec. But for the most part, it seems like Liz Warren and Kamala Harris seem to be, pretty toe-and-toe, and, Beto O'Rourke and Pete Glug, or I can't ever pronounce his name right, but Buttigieg, I guess. They all seem to be different levels of the far left extreme, right? They're constantly trying to pander, to minorities, and they're constantly bringing up the orange man bad, scenario, referring to Trump. None of them are very original, and so to me, they're more or less all saying the same thing, for the most part. So it's really hard for me to honestly distinguish between all of them when they do that. And so it's not really worth commenting on right now, because all I hear from those folks are is intense left-wing speak, and it's not really worth me to dissect them individually at this point. Then we have Joe Biden, who is the old guard establishment, and let's let's just be frank about Joe Biden. I don't think he's going to go anywhere long term. I think he's running obviously because he was the he's the former vice president of the United States. He looking at him for the Democrats, it is kind of like looking at the nostalgia of Obama for the Democrats, right? So Biden has the nostalgia factor, and I mean, I get that. Again, obviously, I'm not supporting, Biden, but I get the nostalgia factor of the Obama administration. But honestly, I think even the Dems know that Biden's not going to go anywhere. He's establishment. He's he's old guard. He's got his points, but I don't think the Dems really want him to be the main nominee, as far as I can tell. He is leading in some of the polls, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything at this point. If he does turn out to be the nominee, I think then obviously, or if it's looking like he'll be the nominee once more of these other nominees in the primary drop out, then I'll become more interested in Biden, obviously. But at this point, it's too early to tell if Biden's really going to be around for the long term to really comment on. So, really the only candidate who who even piques my curiosity in the Democrat primary is Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard interests me because, well, while Tulsi Gabbard is very social liberal and very economically liberal, which I don't agree with, obviously, being a conservative libertarian, Tulsi also pisses off a lot of left-wingers, too, because she's not SJW enough, as the term goes. She's not pandering enough. A lot of far lefties are upset because she's gone on Tucker Carlson's program. She seems to be a little too friendly with, the evil right-wing nut jobs, in air quotes, for their liking. She brings up a lot of things that conservatives are actually concerned about, like, big tech censorship. She's not completely clueless on the fact that we need border security either, it seems. She has actual combat veterans experience, which, while a lot of conservatives aren't supporting her, a lot of conservatives don't mind her as much, and neither do the libertarians. And I think the fact that conservatives and libertarians are more amenable to at least listening to Tulsi is going to piss the far left and the Democrat establishment off. So long story short with Tulsi, the fact that she's not a complete nut bar is actually a disadvantage for her in the primary, at least as far as the establishment Dems go. Now with the Dem electorate, I don't know. I'm hoping she'll be more successful, but it seems like the Dems are going to try and take her out in the same way that the Dem establishment took out Bernie in 2016. Bernie is another candidate who, is running again. But Bernie isn't really doing anything new this go around. We've seen his whole spiel before in 2016 and in 2015, right? His speeches really in his rhetoric hasn't really changed at all. He's campaigning on the exact same thing as he did in 2016, and honestly, I just think people are bored with him, almost. But at this point, he could also spring up in the polls, too, as more and more people jump out, and that's kind of my point. It is still, I feel like it's way too early for me to really make any solid predictions about the about the primaries or about the Democrat Party, because right now the Democrat Party is also kind of having an internal struggle and an internal civil war, right? As I mentioned on Thursday's episode about Jeffrey Epstein and whatnot, I brought up the Clinton and how the Clintons probably are not responsible for Epstein's quote-unquote suicide attempt. And I mentioned that the Clintons basically have no political capital anymore. They're done. The Clinton Foundation, is a no-go at this point. And Hillary is a twice failed presidential candidate, and I don't think the Dems want her anymore. She's disliked even by a lot of her own party members. So I think the Clintons are out as far as influence go. Obviously, they may bring out the Clintons, for appearance sake, but I mean the Clintons are kind of like the Queen of England at this point. It's more of a ceremonial gesture for the Democrats to bring the Clintons out, and she's not going to run in 2020 either. I know people keep saying that she's going to make a surprise run in 2020 at the last minute for a rematch. I would honestly be shocked if that happens. Crazier things have happened, but it seems to me like if a Clinton-Trump rematch were to happen, Trump would win again, because Hillary is just that despised. And I think that was the big takeaway for a lot of people in 2016. I said this as well back in the aftermath of the 2016 election. My vote for Trump wasn't because I was a MAGA guy from the beginning. It was because I knew that Hillary Clinton was going to be the nominee, and I was going to vote for whoever wasn't Hillary as the Republican nominee. Although I think Trump probably, was in fact the most viable candidate to beat Hillary Clinton in the election, and thank God he did. I honestly do think, right, this is another thing I was thinking of. Every election, people say that this election is the most important one about a lifetime. honestly, I believe that the 2016 election really was the most important of my lifetime, probably even more so than 2020, because Hillary needed to be stopped. She is, in my opinion, one of the most corrupt American politicians that we've had in our lifetime, objectively so. And I know that obviously the left is going to say, "Oh, well, that's Trump," but the Clintons had scandal after scandal, and the Clinton body count, and there are way too many things with Clinton, with the Clintons. They have way too many skeletons in their closet, so she needed to be stopped, and I'm glad that she was. So the Clintons are not going to be making an appearance in 2020 at all as political, candidates. So like I said, at this point, it is way too early to tell who the nominee is, in my opinion. Once we get a firmer grasp on who the Democrat nominee is, then I will talk more about who the Democrats are going to nominate. I think that's the best course of action, honestly, is to kind of wait and see where the roadmap goes. But as far as the Democrat primaries are concerned now, there's really not much else for me to say on it at the moment, other than what I just said. I will, of course, obviously, be keeping an eye on things as far as the primary goes. But just hold your horses a bit, and and I mean that in a respectful way. I will have stuff to write on the primaries soon, just not right now at the moment. And I'll keep sending out tweets about the primaries and whatnot, just kind of as things happen. But there's really no point in me doing a daily or a weekly podcast regarding the primaries at this point. So, I hope you guys understand that, and I hope I've answered some of the questions regarding the primaries at this point. So that's that, and like I said, this is going to be a real short podcast. So I realized that this was kind of weird for a Sunday episode, not really a full show. Again, I kind of, I apologize for that. However, I do have announcements to make. This week, at some point, I am going to be doing a full show with Davey Crocco. Davey Crocco is a podcaster and YouTuber who's really been diving deep into the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. And so I'm going to be getting him on the program. Sorry, folks, I've got a dry mouth as well tonight, so that's kind of why I'm swallowing a lot and, But I'm going to have Davey Crock on the program to talk about the Jeffrey Epstein case a bit later this week. It could be as early as tomorrow. It could be on Thursday. And I do feel like the Epstein thing is going to play a part in the election somewhat. I just can't really predict how yet. That's kind of one of my theories. And I will ask Davey about that and his opinion. But you guys have been asking for a more in-depth, show on Jeffrey Epstein and that whole case. So I'm going to make that happen. And again, that could be as early as tomorrow, Monday when we do that stream/podcast. It could be on Thursday. I really don't know yet. But at any rate, folks, I want to thank you all for tuning into tonight's podcast. However, boring it may have been for you guys. Hopefully it wasn't too bad, though. And just thank you for supporting the show. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @somebody_NGC. You can follow me on Gab and mine's at Sam Whitfield. And keep it locked to the website at thesamwhitfield.com. And as always, if you like this podcast, wherever you're listening, please rate, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys supporting the show and giving feedback, even on these shorter podcasts. I really do appreciate it. Anyway, folks, I will talk to you later this week on the podcast. So from all of us here at NGC Studios, have a good evening or a good day. God bless and God save this great nation wherever you are. I'll talk to you later, folks, and thanks for tuning in to the Whitfield Report.